Hello art friends, my name is fleshwadyt and welcome to another Drawing Your Creepypasta OCs video. Before we begin, I'd just like to remind you the way you can enter is by either commenting your OC down below in the comment section, or if you have a drawing of your OC you can send that to my email at fleshwadyt@gmail.com. I will not take any OCs through DM on Instagram or Twitter, only through YouTube or my email. I'm using the program Procreate on the iPad, and yeah, if you have any other questions, please leave them below for me. Our first OC is titled Heart Full of Ink. The character's name is Milo James Inkwell, and it was submitted by Wilbur May. Milo used to be a very happy-go-lucky kid. He loved bright and colorful things, and he loved calligraphy. He thought it was odd, but it made him feel unique and happy. His only flaw was how gullible he was, and how he constantly let people walk all over him and use him. He came from a very rich family, but he never bragged about it. He was perfectly content with keeping it to himself. One day, however, it was revealed how rich he actually was. His mother sent their butler Ryan to pick him up from school, for she was busy at work that day. Everyone at school saw the big black limo pull up, and Milo hopped in. The next day was the day before Valentine's Day, and Milo wanted to ask out his crush Adam. Adam was a popular boy, with tanned skin and dark curls that stay atop his head like a crown. He got all the girls, but not just because of his looks. He was smart and funny, and always knew how to make you smile. Milo was quite the opposite. He was tall, and thin enough that a stiff breeze could have carried him away. He had such pale skin that you would have assumed he had never been outside a day in his life, or maybe you'd think he was dead. But their differences didn't stop Milo from wanting to shower Adam in kisses every time he saw him. The only issue was that Adam was very straight, and would never date Milo, but Milo didn't know that. That day at lunch, Milo slipped a note into Adam's locker, asking him to meet him behind the building after school. After school was over, he met up with Milo behind the school. Milo took a deep, shaky breath and blurted out, "Will you be my Valentine's date?" Adam looked at the tall, quivering boy and thought for a moment. He didn't want to be Milo's Valentine, but he knew that he was rich and a huge pushover. He smiled and thought up a horrible plan. A beautifully horrible plan. He stood on his toes and gave Milo a kiss on the cheek and said, "Of course." Milo was filled with joy. He ran home on his feet and called his mom to tell her the news, and that he didn't need a ride home today. He finally got home and ran inside. Dashing to his bedroom, he threw himself on the bed and sighed. His one true love liked him back. The next day at school, he showed up in a pink suit and a red tie and sat with Adam. Then he took him to the shops during lunch break to buy whatever he wanted. And at the end of the day, Adam asked to be excused so he could use the restroom. 30 minutes later, he still wasn't back, and Milo was getting worried. So he went to the men's restroom to check on his date. When he opened the door, he was shocked to see his date and some random girl making out on the floor. Milo let out an almost inhuman shriek, causing the other two to jolt upward in fear. Milo stared at Adam, tears pouring from his eyes, his face filled with an ungodly rage. He reached into his back pocket and took out a calligraphy pen. He lunged at Adam, stabbing the pen into his chest and ripping it open with only his hands and his pen. He sat on top of the boy, tearing his ribs out and yanking his heart out of his chest. He held it in front of Adam's fear-stricken eyes and squeezed the blood out. He then took his pen and stuck it in the heart. The pen somehow was producing an infinite ink, filling the heart until it was as black as the night sky with no stars. He was startled by the sudden thought of the girl who was trying to escape. She had slipped on the blood and fallen over. Now, crawling to the door on all fours, Milo darted towards her, jamming the pen into the back of her knee as she attempted to scramble to her feet. He dragged her to the floor and held her down with his foot. He loosened his hold on her and eventually released, allowing her to think she was free. Just as she made an attempt to stand up, he slammed his foot down onto her chest, crushing her ribs. He then proceeded to stomp on various parts of her body, her throat, her limbs, her stomach, etc. Once he was pleased with how mangled her body looked, he looked at her face. It wasn't broken yet. He grabbed her by her dirty blonde hair and smashed her head into the ground over and over again, and then he ripped her eyes out and stomped on them. He sat on top of her mangled and deformed body and tore open her chest, for her heart was to meet the very same fate as Milo's cheating date Adam. He drained her heart and pumped it full of ink. He looked around at the bloody, inky mess he had made and laughed. He wiped his hands on his suit and took the hearts of the victims and pinned them up on the bathroom wall with his pen. He looked around again and noticed a little purse. He rummaged through it and found lipstick and a pocket knife. He took both items and used the knife to dismember the two bodies on the floor and stuck their limbs in the toilets for all to see. He then applied the lipstick to his lips, kissed Adam's now lifeless lips, and hummed a sweet poem. Some hearts are red, some hearts are pink, but you, my dear, your heart is full of ink. He put Adam's decapitated head in the sink and ran out of the bathroom and out of the school through the back door, where there were no cameras or guards. He ran into the woods and all the way home using a shortcut. When he arrived at home, he threw away the suit and washed up. He sat in his room and began to fake cry. He put on an identical outfit to the one he was wearing before and waited. His mom came home a few minutes later to hear her son crying. She went to his room where she saw him bawling his eyes out. He made up a story. He said that Adam broke up with him and that he was so devastated that he ran home without telling her that he didn't need Ryan to pick him up. She hugged him and told him it would be okay. She felt so bad for him, and was about to speak again when she felt a searing pain in her back. He had stabbed her. He ran the knife down her back and ripped out her spine. He reached into her and pulled out her heart and did the same thing that he had done to Adam's, then pinned it on the wall and whispered to his dying mother, "I know what really happened to Dad. He didn't disappear, did he? He didn't leave us, and you know that. You killed him, Mother." His mom coughed up a large puddle of blood and died. He smiled at his work and ran off. If you ever cheat on your lover or hurt your lover in any way, you will find ink drips all over your home for weeks. You'll start losing family members at rapid rates. You will lose your pet to unknown circumstances, and then you'll meet the same inky fate as the others. The last thing you'll hear before death is a male voice saying, "Some hearts are red, some hearts are pink, but you, my dear, your heart is full of ink." Love Eye, submitted by Nightmare Nico Girl. "Veronica," said a voice. "Veronica." The voice said louder. Veronica stirred in her sleep, trying to ignore whatever was calling for her. "Veronica!" The voice then shouted, sounding just like Alice, who had died a year before. Alice was a girl Veronica used to bully back in middle to high school. Sadly, Alice passed away on Valentine's Day around midnight by hanging herself in her bedroom, but not before removing both her eyes before hanging herself. After Alice died, everyone blamed Veronica for what she did to the poor girl all those years. So now everyone's avoiding her, and ignored the raven head whenever they could. Now she knew how Alice felt. Sitting up, the 16-year-old girl looked around the dark bedroom. Rain poured outside with lightning flashing. When lightning struck, the light flashed over a figure standing in the corner. Veronica jolted up and turned her lamp on, but the figure was no longer there. "It's just your imagination, Veronica. Just your imagination," she says, laying back down to try to get back to sleep. Veronica, wake up, the voice said again, but it had said something else. Jake, if this is you doing this, go back to bed, Veronica said, thinking it was her little brother. But oh no, it wasn't her younger brother. Jake's not here, the voice says, making the girl immediately sit back up, looking around again. She didn't understand. Confused, she didn't get out of bed, too afraid for something to be under her bed. You're 16, Veronica. There's nothing to be afraid of. There is something to be afraid of, the voice said in a quiet, hushed voice from beyond the shadows. Veronica, scared even more now, got up and pulled the Swift Army knife from her drawer, flicking the blade up from its container. Who the hell are you? What do you want from me? Veronica shouted, holding the blade out to who or whatever it was that was speaking to her. Do you really not remember me? The voice asked in a more loud tone, letting the girl see the same figure standing in the corner. The figure looked to be an average-sized female figure with long hair and bangs covering the face. Veronica couldn't see it so well. Come out, I'm not afraid of you, Veronica said, still holding the Swift Army knife, her hand shaking with fear. The female figure slowly stepped into view, revealing an unfamiliar-looking girl stepping from the shadows. She was about 5'7" tall, with a slim-looking body and long, slender-looking fingers. Her skin was very pale, so pale you could probably see through it. She had long, mid-length rose-gold shaggy hair that just fell at the middle of her back, with her long bangs covering half of her face. Her skin was porcelain white, glowing kind of. She wore an oversized black Korean hoodie that fell just above her knees. A big crimson-red heart was sewn onto the middle of the hoodie, with a couple of blood stains. Her legs had small nicks, cuts with dark, blackish-purple bruises on her legs and feet. Her neck had a big dark bruise from the noose she hung herself with. Her long, slender fingers had dry blood on them, with fresh blood dripping from them. I'm surprised you don't remember the girl you killed, the mysterious girl said, lifting her head up to show her face, which terrified the cruel teen. It was Alice, but she looked completely different, with big, pitch-black eye sockets, with small streams of blood pouring out of them. A small, single, red heart pupil in the socket. It was very small, but it could still be slightly seen, glowing a small red hue. Her bangs were messy and unbrushed, probably from being dead for an entire year. Her mouth was outstretched with complete blackness for a mouth. She still had teeth, but they were very long and sharp, with blood staining the monster teeth. Lifting her arm up, Alice, or what was once Alice, pointed a finger at the teen in front of her, her messy hair highlighted by the lightning strike outside. Veronica didn't, or couldn't, say anything, too afraid as she looked at where Alice's other hand went, into her hoodie pocket, her hand slowly pulling out a blood-stained scalpel. Alice was the mysterious killer the police could never catch. Mysterious murders have been happening all over the neighborhood. All the victims were the same: child/woman abusers, cheaters, the worst bullies from the school the two girls used to go to, and more. All the victims were found the same, with their eyes gouged out and their hearts forcefully torn out of their bodies, and placed next to a body with a small piece of scrap paper, with the words, "Love Eyes," written in the blood of her victims. And now Veronica would be another one of those victims. Love Eyes stepped towards the paralyzed girl, putting an aquamarine surgical mask on before a supernatural force knocked Veronica down to the floor, the Swift Army knife flinging away under the dresser. Love Eyes grabbed her new victim by the hair, holding her in place. The girl's body was slumped against the wall. Blood drenched the body, with her heart forcefully ripped from her chest and laying on her lap. Her once emerald green eyes cleaning cut out with a scalpel. Love Eyes put Veronica's eyes in a glass jar to add to her collection when she heard the bedroom door open and light poured into the room. "Veronica, are you okay?" It was her friend Alexander, another bully of Alice's who tormented her throughout the years. Love Eyes slowly turned to look at him and pulled her surgical mask down, staring the boy dead in the eyes with her pitch black, bloody sockets, and placed a slender finger to her white lips and whispered, "Shh." And those were the 2 OCs I have for you in this video. Please make sure to comment your OC down below or send in a drawing of your OC to my email at fleshwadyt@gmail.com for a chance to be chosen for the next video. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted, and I hope you like the art if I drew your OC. Very, very creepy stories. Thank you guys so much for letting me narrate them. And yeah, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching. Until the next video. Bye.